And first of all, welcome to UUCM Justice Night, where for the next hour, or maybe a little bit more than an hour, we are going to disclose and review an enormous 80-year plan to build a gold mining industry in the Grass Valley area. So at this point, I am going to go and just use a few slides. And you'll see here names of the guilty, and we'll very quickly move to the next slide. So the thing I want to do is recognize the people who have been providing lots of good energy for this program. And I'm not going to read every person's name, but you can quickly scan it and see yours and see other people that have contributed and really taken a stand about the mine. The mission of this team is over on the right side, and note that it's really fairly passive except for advocacy, and we want to kind of take a position at some point as part of the congregation. We want to influence the decision makers, primarily the Board of Supervisors, the county, protect ourselves and represent our congregation. So the agenda looks like this, and we're doing pretty well. So this brief introduction will be over in just a little bit. I'm going to introduce our guest speaker, and then we'll come back and do a little bit of an overview, and then Joyce has to leave, so we'll start with the statements of team members so that all of us who are involved get to make a statement if they want to. So one of the things I did want to say is that there are about 2,000 people who have signed up against the mine. And part of what's going on now is we have a decision process, and I think it's important before Chris starts speaking to just see where we are. And I'll just focus on the panel on the right, and that is we were notified by the county in July of last year, and then in the summer of this year, hasn't happened yet. We're expecting a draft environmental impact report, and that is really critical. It's coming out in the next few weeks, probably mention it again, and it'll be open for community reviews so that all of us in the congregation who want to respond to that, we're going to make sure you know who to write to and how to get your letters in, because they could become part of the permanent record. So we expect that in early next year, 2022, we will have the final environmental impact report, and then subsequent to that and the staff of the county's analysis, we will go before the Board of Supervisors, and they will make a decision whether or not to approve the environmental impact report. We're not really sure at this point if that will mean the mine gets to go ahead, or if there will be some other hurdles that have to be undertaken, like considering another report that is not part of the state process, which is the economic study. So that's where we are in a very critical phase in the next few weeks. So now I'm going to welcome our speaker. Just delighted to have you, Chris. And I want to say that Chris Newsom has been a physician in Western Nevada County for most of her career. And she was educated at UC Davis, and I guess followed up at the University of San Francisco. She has, if I'm correct, Chris, she has treated patients with pulmonary and respiratory illness, and that is a major area of impact of the mine. Having retired, she's probably working like every one of us, much more than she did when she was employed. And she's working mostly for social justice, including the most significant threat to public health in Western Nevada County in modern times, which is the mine. So with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Newsom.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate that nice introduction. Hello, everybody. I know a good many of you, and it's nice to see your faces and also those who I don't know. I'm going to start right in because we have a marathon to go through all this material. And this is really a synopsis of a talk I gave to the Mine Watch group maybe 3 months ago. So for those of you who heard that talk, I do apologize if some of it is redundant, but they say that repetition is one of the best forms or best means of learning. So maybe we'll all learn a little more this way. As Jim mentioned, this is going to be, I'm going to focus on the public health aspects of the mine. And so I'm not going to dwell on some of the other effects that don't have to do with the public health. I think the other speakers will cover those. And I'm going to primarily be acting, excuse me, I'm gotta go to slideshow, and I will be covering these 4 general areas: air quality effects, water effects, noise effects, and psychosocial effects. But before I go into those areas, I want to show you the map for those of you who are not familiar with what area of Grass Valley and environment will be affected. I want to review this.
I want to see where we are.
Okay, here is in purple or violet are the city limits of Grass Valley. In green is Empire Mine State Park. All right, look at the gray areas. First of all, the light gray areas.
Over here somewhere, right?
I would imagine, yeah.
The two,
Yeah.
Excuse me, could Robin and Marion please mute themselves? We're hearing background noise. Thank you.
the two light gray areas are the above ground areas that the Idaho-Maryland mine, or Rise Gold as it's now called, will be working on. At the Brunswick industrial site is where they will be descending into the ground, working their underground mine and bringing up the ore. This is where they will bring it up, refine it, crush it, refine it, separate out the gold. Then they will put the worked ore into trucks, drive it down Brunswick Drive to Whispering Pines, turn left, and take it to the Centennial site where they will dump it. They will dump it and stack it, move it around, stack it many times a day, up to 100 truck trips a day, back and forth, for up to 80 years. That's what their contract will be, for 80 years. It will be stacked to a height of 7 stories tall at this Centennial site. All right, those are the above ground sites, but do you see the dark gray? That is the mineral right map of the mine. That means from 200 feet below ground and on further down, they have the rights to dig the minerals. So once they go below ground at the Brunswick site, they can then tunnel their way all to the areas that you see in dark gray. That means they can tunnel down beneath the airport, up north, down south, and all the way over under the city limits of Grass Valley. So we're going to come back to this map, but this is to get you oriented. All right, first let's talk about air quality. But even before that, we need to talk about the background pulmonary health of our county, because before you talk about what lung diseases people might develop, you need to know what are the existing lung diseases in our county. This is from a 2019 community health assessment that was done between the hospital and the county. You see Nevada County here and then compared with the state of California. On the left-hand column, you see mortality of chronic lung disease. Now look at Nevada County. The incidence is 69 cases per 100,000 annually, compared with the state of California of 35 per 100,000. So it's about double. The prevalence of asthma is about 12%, even higher up in Truckee, but we'll stick with Western Nevada County. That's compared to almost 9% in the state of California. The mortality from heart disease is 224 deaths per 100,000 population annually, compared with 157 in the state of California. Okay, so we have a higher incidence of both chronic lung disease, asthma, and heart disease. Add to that now the polluting effects of all that activity of mining. First, let's look at that diesel, the tremendous increase in diesel exhaust we'll get from the trucks and the machinery from the mine. Diesel produces multiple greenhouse gases that include nitrous oxide, carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, nitrous oxide, and sulfur oxide in multiple forms. These gases are toxic by themselves, and also when reacted on by ultraviolet light, they produce ozone. And all of these multiple gases cause asthma, wheezing, coughing, and shortness of breath. In addition, they produce particulate matter of the sort that we've been getting from the wildfire smoke. And that can greatly increase our risk of asthma, wheezing, shortness of breath, and in particular, cancer. The state of California has concluded that 70% of the cancer risk to our citizens comes from toxic air contamination from diesel. In addition to the diesel concerns, I am very concerned about something called fugitive dust. And that word comes from the idea that these dusts will be escaping when it would be hoped that they would be filtered out, but it's extremely hard to filter these out. We're referring specifically to silica, which is found in quartz, and asbestos fibers, which are found in some particular kinds of ore. And we do know from Rise Gold's own data that they have taken ore samples from the site on Brunswick, and they have definitely found both silica and asbestos sources in their sampling. The potential of both these fibers is that they can cause inflammatory lung disease, which is a chronic lung disease that leads to the wheezing, shortness of breath, and ultimately an emphysema type of situation where the person dies from not being unable to get enough air. But in the case of asbestos, it can also cause lung disease and a cancer of the surrounding tissue of the lung called mesothelioma. Now, we don't know with certainty that the risk of silicosis and asbestosis or lung cancer would be increased, but we do know with certainty that the exposure to diesel would be increased with the opening of the mine. And these effects on your health have been very discussed, I think, in the union. We're seeing a lot about mine dewatering, traffic, and so forth. And these are definitely important. I'm not minimizing them, but I'd like to see more discussion of the risk of lung disease and lung cancer, because these are my major concerns. All right, this is not advancing. Why is it not?
It's a presentation, which is very, very.
I am paying attention.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Okay, but you have your camera.
We're
on.
hearing background
No, but
noise.
nobody's on.
As we're hearing background noise, will those not presenting please mute themselves? Thank you.
So Chris, what you can do is you should be able to just click your mouse on that picture and it'll go forward. There it is. So it can now click. There you go.
Okay. I'm going to just very quickly say the mine lists mitigation strategies they will take to solve these problems, such as using a special kind of diesel engine, filters on the ventilation fans, keeping the dust wetted down, rinsing truck tires, putting tarps over the extracted materials. All of these would be self-regulated. The mine would be watching themselves, policing themselves. There's no government agency nor plan put forth by the mine by which anyone else would be regulating this. So that, to me, this says nothing. Fox watching the hen house sort of situation. We need something better, especially with regard to asbestosis. Okay, let's talk about water. The mine, by its own data, will be pumping out, right now, those mine tunnels that are already existing are filled with water. This is water that has been there for decades. So that means in order for humans to tunnel through and work the mine, they need to be pumped out. Okay, the Rise Gold itself, by its own calculations, will be pumping out 3,600,000 gallons per day for the first 6 months, then 1,200,000 gallons per day for 80 years thereafter. Right now, the current levels in that water are above MCL means median, I forget what the two words stand for, but it's allowable levels. Median something level, which is the equivalent of allowable levels, 5 times that of iron, 4 times that of manganese, and 3 times that of arsenic. All right, Rise Gold says that it will be treating the water that it pumps out so that it is acceptable to drinking water standards before it is dumped into Wolf Creek. Once again, the problem with that is it's up to Rise Gold to be monitoring that. There will be no, the public health department of the county will only be intermittently monitoring that. There's no one charged with monitoring that on a regular basis. So that's an area of great concern. Wolf Creek Alliance, which is the body of water that it's going to be dumped into, is of course very concerned, and they will be having monitors, but that's a volunteer organization. Okay, I'm talking about noise here. Noise is a great concern of mine because I have partial hearing loss, and maybe some of you do. This is just for background. For those of you who may not know what normal noise levels are, here's normal conversation is usually about 60 decibels. School children in a noisy cafeteria, that would be about 80 decibels. OSHA has a permissible exposure limit of 90 before one has to wear ear protection. Or putting it a different way over on this side, this is job site sound levels. OSHA recommends that employees not be exposed to noise levels greater than 85 decibels for a continuous level of period of time without ear protection. And if you look at any of these machineries here, you'll see that they all fall above those levels. Well, let's look at some of these, why that is. Look at the noise levels on the left, and on the right, you'll see how long it takes before damage is done to the ear apparatus without protection. And you can see that at 82, you can barely see, at 82 decibels, takes about 16 hours. You don't have to go up much to 85 before it is cut in half to 8 hours before significant damage is done, and so on. By the time you go up to 91 decibels, it only takes 2 hours. And remember that damage to the ear apparatus isn't only, the effect is not only hearing, but you also get tinnitus, which is a ringing in the ears, and you can get vertigo, which is a sensation of spinning, and you can get prolonged depression. So the onset of these symptoms is often very subtle, and there can be a long delay between noise exposure from the mine and realization of the causal relationship to these symptoms. So we really have to be astute and aware of that this can be a lingering danger. Obviously, the public isn't going to be standing right next to these machines, so I don't mean to imply that we, the public, are going to have these kinds of exposures. The workers will, but presumably the company is going to issue protective hearing gear to all of its employees. But it's much harder to measure what chronic noise exposure will be to the public that are removed, you know, just a few hundred feet, or let's say a quarter mile away. And I guess someone will be talking about noise exposure later on in this talk, so you'll probably address some of that. I'm going to, in the next slide, oh no, I wanted to just review mining equipment sound levels. And this data was taken from University of Michigan, Department of Environmental Health Science. These are machines used in the field of mining. As you can see, compactor, excavator, front end loader, grader, etc. You see the decibel levels range anywhere from 92 up to 111 with an earth scraper. These are absolutely unacceptable, even for minutes. And again, the public is going to be removed somewhat from these, but so the noise level will be degraded, but to what level? We don't know. What if it's down to 80 or even 70? We will, if this is, you know, if we drive by on a daily basis, or if our kids go to school at Hennessy School, well, I guess that's now Grass Valley Charter School, there will be some repeated exposure, and it's going to be hard to measure and hard to know about. The reason why I'm showing the map again is I want to point out something. Remember I said that the Centennial site is where they're going to be processing the spent ore and stacking it up and moving it around. Okay, see this outline here? I call it the Scotty dog head. And see this ear of the Scotty dog? That's where Sierra Nevada Memorial Hospital is. Now you notice it's the dark gray here. That is where, oh, no, sorry. I want to go one back. Can I do, yeah, okay. There will be explosive explosions going on in the underground areas as the mining company tries to open up more of the tunnels as they find new sources of gold. And what happens if they find a vein of ore in this general area? I want to point out, it doesn't show here, but Idaho, let's see, I'm having trouble looking. Okay, Whispering Pines is here. Idaho-Maryland is here. And then Dorsey runs right here. It's not on the map. But in this area, bounded by Dorsey, Sutton, Idaho-Maryland, and then Highway 49, you have 4 senior residence centers: Atria, Crystal Ridge, Wolf Creek, and Golden Empire. Actually, Wolf Creek is a little more like over here. But if you can sort of visualize this general area, you've got 4 very large extended care facilities or residential facilities, and you've got Sierra Nevada Memorial Hospital. So I want you to imagine, suppose you have a loved one, or if you yourself are in one of those facilities, and you've got Rise Gold exploring subterranean property in this area, exploding there. You've got the above ground industrial equipment that I showed you on the Centennial site. Just try and imagine the noise level and the vibratory exposure that you would be experiencing, and the emotional impact that might have on you. And that leads me to the final subject, the psychosocial effects of the mine on our community. I'm going to remind you that in order to think about a medical effect, one has to remember what the background noise, so to speak, is, or the background incidence of a disease is. And let's look at that 2019 Community Health Needs Assessment. Let's look at depression. In Nevada County, in that assessment, the incidence, prevalence of depression was approximately 27%. In the state of California, it was about 19%. The suicide mortality rate, sadly, was about 20 cases per 100,000, as compared to about 11 per 100,000 annually in the state of California. So it was almost twice in our county. And yet we only had about 9 psychiatric providers per 100,000 people, compared with 13.4.5 per 100,000 people in the state of California. And although that's psychiatrists, and we have a lot more mental health providers of other certifications, still the ratio is impressive. In that same health needs assessment, the public was asked to rate 10 health needs as to what they thought their rank of necessity was. And out of those 10 needs, the number 1 need was access to mental or behavioral or substance abuse service, counseling service. So it's really perceived as a real necessity. So that's where we are already. I'm asking you to imagine, if we reopen the mine, what will be the effect of that mine on the emotional health of our community. I would suggest to you that we will have more problems in that area. If you think about the increased anxiety over property values, the increased anxiety over dewatering of the wells, which I believe you're going to hear more about, increased frustration and depression over the noise, which I discussed, increased frustration and depression over the worsening of the respiratory status of ourselves and our loved ones, which it will happen. There's no doubt about that. The decreased pride and cohesiveness in our community. We already are so challenged by the polarization, and this is just going to make things worse. And then finally, the frustration that will occur, that little to no economic return is coming to this community. I'm afraid we are going to see just a worsening of what we've already experienced over the last 10 to 20 years. So I would conclude that the population of Western Nevada County at risk for one or more negative health effects of the reopening of the mine could number in the tens of thousands. And that stands in contrast to the 312 people expected to reap the benefit of gaining a job at the mine. And half of that number might even come from outside of our county. Considering all that I've discussed tonight, I think that the benefit to risk ratio is not close to being justified. I think I will close with that, and I don't know if we even have time for any questions, but Jim, I'll leave that up to you.
Well, actually, I'm going to hand it back to you, this hot potato, and the questions that for you would be coming up right now. So if anyone has a question, unmute yourself and quickly ask Chris just a quick question because she has to leave. Anybody have a question? Roberta.
Hi, Chris. Nice to see you and thank you for explaining so much. I had to leave the room for a minute, but I was trying to write down some facts. Did you say it was 7 stories tall, the piles they would be making?
Ultimately, yeah. I forget what that converts to feet. I think it's 90, either 70 or 90 feet tall is the permissible level of the tailings. Ultimately, it won't be that at first, but ultimately.
And their use permit would be for 80
years.
Mm-hmm.
Marion?
Will this presentation be shared with the Board of Supervisors?
We're working on that, and hopefully through the large organization that is behind this, the Community Environmental Advocates that also runs Mine Watch, we're going to work, and we're determined to get Chris in front of those supervisors, but they're a tough bunch. So, Marion?
Yeah, a quick question. How do they propose to treat that much water being pumped out of the tunnels? Are they going to build a water treatment plant, or is that?
That's my understanding, a mini water treatment plant. There's a good discussion on the Mine Watch site, which Jim can, it's basically minewatch.org, I believe.
Yeah.
In which I'm forgetting the gentleman's name, but anyway, he discusses what primary drinking water means and what secondary drinking water means. And they are being required to only purify it to secondary drinking water standards. That's what they're doing. It's pretty minimal.
Very minimal. Thank you.
And it's going to be, there's going to be a settling pond. And their theory is that they can put 3.6 million gallons of water into that settling pond and leave it there long enough to settle before the next 3.6 million gallons from the next day comes into that pond. It's quite a thing to imagine. Sue, you have to unmute yourself.
Thank you. Hi, Chris.
Nice.
I have been under the impression that this mine was very unlikely to pass, but now I'm thinking that maybe this is much more dire than I anticipated.
My understanding is that Heidi Hall is likely against it. The gentleman from Truckee is quite reasonable and may well be against it. Dan Miller is almost certainly for it, and it's in his district. Ed Schofield and Sue Hook are unknowns.
Chris, can you talk a little bit to why people are for it? I mean, I've only heard.
I'm taking too much of everyone's time, and I'm actually supposed to be in another Zoom meeting. So that, I mean, I'll be happy to come back, but I probably am not the best person to talk about that.
About who and why? A
Yeah.
supervisor would support.
I certainly,
Money, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, money talks.
Really, they're, okay, thank you.
I'm
Okay.
wondering about if the Centennial site is in the bounds of Grass Valley, can the city council put the kibosh on the use of the site for that purpose?
No, they have specifically given up the authority to make any decision. They talked about it at their council meeting and said, we elect to wash our hands of it. We hand it over to the county.
And the fact of the matter is the Centennial site is not within the city limits. It is within the sphere of influence, but they really don't have, the high level of jurisdiction that you might think.
And that's unchangeable?
Well, they can always annex parts of the county. They've done quite a bit of that, but there's no discussion of that. And what's interesting is that that in talking to I'm forgetting Bob. Bob is a member of our church, and he's also in the city council. So I've met with him, and I'm going to continue to see if we can get some attention from them.
Bob Brandstrom.
Yeah, Princeton. Yeah. I had coffee with him a week ago. Yeah. Okay. Chris, thank you so much. Yeah, and if this were a live meeting, we'd give you an extra piece of pizza and an applause.
Well, as I say, I will be happy to come back again, and best of luck to all of you in your efforts. It will take our whole community. I mean, if Mr. Miller sees that the large majority of his district is against it, he would be ill-advised to vote for it.
Except he's retiring.
Yeah, he doesn't care. He's leaving.
Yeah, you're right. I guess I can't comment on that. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah. So that is one of the things we're working on in the team is which supervisors to focus on. I met with Dan Miller and Sue Hoke in a meeting a couple of weeks ago, and I think that just to answer, I think that was Sue's question. Sue is probably the most likely to be persuasible. Dan, I've known him for a number of years, and he's not. And Ed Schofield is also pretty for any business that comes to town. I think you'd like, except maybe a casino and some unsavory things that he would probably vote against. But anyway, so I'm going to take us back to the overview part of this.
Real quick question.
Sure.
Why do you think Dan Miller is for it?
That is an assessment that we have in the Mine Watch committee of about 50 people some who know him. He has always voted for anything that had to do with construction and building, and he is very, very pro-business. So and he's not a progressive. So that's why we think he will almost certainly vote for it. Okay. We could get into, some other things about him, but I prefer to save that for a smaller group.
Jim?
Yeah.
I've also seen an article in the Union expressing his opinions about things, and it's very obvious that he is totally for this project.
Okay. Good to have that fact. Yeah, thanks, Robin. Okay, I'm going to go back to the presentation. And for those of you who joined early, I want to go back to the the agenda. And so I'm not going to spend 15 minutes on this really, because Joyce asked to offer her statement before 6 o'clock. But I do want to just follow up on a few things that Chris said. So going forward, this is something that Chris talked about quite a bit. And what she didn't get a chance to mention is that all of this area around here, around the Brunswick site, here's Brunswick Road, all of this area is zoned residential. And what, I'm going to go back, that just jumped a little bit too fast there. And what is a mystery to me is that this land is zoned light industrial because there was a mill site there at one time. And it was a lumber mill. 70 plus years ago, of course, it was the Idaho-Maryland mine was there. So the thing that has to happen is it has to be rezoned to heavy industrial. And that is a decision the county government will make. And no one's talking about, okay, they're going to do that, right? So the second thing I wanted to point out is that all of that toxic dust, that fugitive stuff that's going to get away from the various retention techniques the mine proposes to use, that is actually very obviously going to come from this site. And right now, the Centennial site is a toxic site. It's been designated by the EPA and it's under control of the State Department of Toxic Waste Management. And that organization is working with the mine who owns this. And a condition of them proceeding is to clean it up. So another wonderful irony is they're going to bury all the toxic deposits here, especially right in this area right here, underneath a 5-foot cap of concrete, and then move the soil that is over here, which is a riparian area that has even a protected plant in it. They're going to take that soil and bulldoze it and put it over on top of the toxic hotspot, it's called. And then after they do all that, then they're going to bring all the toxic waste, 1,000 tons a day, down Brunswick across Whispering Pines and dump it there. So I can't imagine dumping being not the source of tremendous pollution, right? But anyway, so here to summarize a little bit about what Chris said, she talked about the hospital, senior care facilities, and Cedar Ridge and so forth. I don't know if she was clear, but this gray area, the dark gray area, they have the mineral rights to go underneath all of that. So that's part of what's happening. And this is a little misleading, but you see, here's the city limits. See, it goes right around the Centennial Industrial Dump Site. Okay, so that's one of the reasons the city is not doing very much. You notice that they can come up from the mine shafts and the mine tunnels to within 200 feet of the surface, which is pretty close. 1,800 parcels are actually within 1,000 feet, which would reach what Chris was talking about with a very serious concern about noise. So that would be 1,000 feet is all pretty much right in this area. And then we've counted the wells, and many of the wells are in this area, and 300 of them are considered at very, very high risk. So one of the things that's come up, and I got a real kick out of having enjoyed Daryl Berkheimer's contributions to the union, and he sort of fits right into the area of trust. Really, we're supposed to trust this organization. So he wrote an article in the union that is really good. They call it a roast, and to quote him, he said, "Residents here are well-educated, well-informed, and not easily fooled." Right. So here are some issues with trust, and it's a junior mining company. It's relatively small, but I want to bring up that a very curious thing is happening with their financing. So they have 5 members of the board of directors, and they represent different mining companies all as far away as Africa. And so they see another mine opportunity, and they are standing with the ability to buy shares of stock for this public company and have bought a lot of shares of stock. And that's been the basis of what's happened so far. But what was really curious is that in an analysis of the economics, and I hope I'm not getting into one of our speakers tonight, but it's a little detail. There's a $1 million loan that Ben Mossman has taken out. He's the CEO of Rise Mine, and he took that out so that it has a progressively increasing interest rate. And in the fourth year, the interest on $1 million that he's borrowed will be 25%. So we think that indicates something about his timetable. So most mines don't make a profit in 14 years. So we have to consider that with a great deal of skepticism, I think. And the weak financial position is indicated by him having to borrow money. His stock is trading at about 46 cents a share now on the over-the-counter stock exchange. And you would have thought that he made enough money by the initial public offering, but having to borrow money is not good. And we had a bankruptcy judge write in the union, many of you probably read that, who said he couldn't see that the company was going to be financially viable. That was his position. So the CEO and his work in Canada, where he's incorporated in Vancouver, I counted 32 charges against him by the Superior Court of Canada. They're unresolved at this point, and we can look at it to see how it progresses. This one just came about in the past few weeks. We discovered that in the economic review, Rise Gold is claiming that its benefit to Nevada County will be a certain dollar amount per year, and in that dollar amount is the payments they make to PG&E for electricity. So things like that do not contribute to trust. So what I would like to do now is turn it over to Joyce, and the topic that she chose to make a statement on is really about none of the things on your screen right now, but it's about the return on investment. And that gets right down to some of the issues I just mentioned. So Joyce, take it away.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Well, Rise Gold is a 14-year-old company that has never opened a mine. Is there a background noise?
You sound good to me.
Oh, okay. It's never opened or operated a mine or made a profit. You've heard about the CEO's legal case with all these problems that he had. His previous company, they polluted the tribal waters around the mine. They went bankrupt and they left Canadians to clean up the mess. And he is going to trial for these pollution charges. Very few local jobs would come from their being here. The mine would use 12% of Nevada County power. That is more than all the current businesses in Nevada County. And risks our current tourism, because this is where this is our major economic mainstay. The gold would not be sold here. The state would get $5 in taxes per every ounce. That's the state. Nevada County would get taxes off those two little parcels. But it's estimated that the drop in property values would be 20% across the board. There's nothing to compensate for the damage to the roads between these two sites. hard rock mining is the biggest source of toxic waste in the US. They want to operate this facility in the middle of a residential community, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for 80 years. The mine's job proposals is based on their projection, which they say, they imagined the amount of maximum production, which may be after 14 years if the previous speaker is correct. But it's not even based on anything. They acknowledge that high-paying jobs would not go to locals. 85% of vendors' spending will be to elsewhere. And the last thing I want to say is that the Economic Policy Institute assessment of 179 industries says that mining is practically the worst possible job creator. So that's the economic look.
Wow.
I'm done.
Okay.
Write your board of supervisor and say, if you vote for it, you're out. I'm not voting for you again, please.
Yeah, one of the things that's on our list to do as a mind watching team within the church is to let everybody know who their supervisor is. And for those of us living in the city of Grass Valley, it is Dan Miller. So, and for those living in the city of Nevada City and close environment, it's Heidi Hall. So we really I need to talk to Dan Miller, I guess. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to go back and just share my screen just one more time for a little bit, and then Steve Temple is next up as a member of our group. So this slide is a standard slide in our presentation that we're giving to the public. And one of the things that it does is it summarizes what Chris said, but I want to add a little bit to it. And that is that one of the things that's going to happen on that Brunswick site is the storage of not only diesel fuel, but also of ammonium nitrate, which is the explosive that they're going to be using down in the mine. And you will hear on the counter argument that they're going to do a lot of the rock crushing that was previously, 70 years ago or more, done above ground by the stamp mills. They're going to try to do a lot of that underground. And it's not clear how successful that is going to be, how many precedents there are for that kind of processing in hard rock mining. So the thing that Chris talked about again was mine dewatering. One of the things that amused me when I read this, when I first started investigating this over a year ago, was that this is far above the flood stage of Wolf Creek. So Wolf Creek will not only receive all of the toxic materials that get through whatever they settle in their settling pond, but it also will have a lot of materials stirred up from previous mining, especially things like mercury, which is a heavy metal and will be sitting on the bottom, and that all will be stirred up because of this flood stage operation that will be going for at least 6 months. That's their plan. And I love this shot of wells. A lot of people are convinced, and they've talked to NID to see if there's an alternative. NID is probably going to be asked to provide water to homes along the Brunswick Road corridor. But at this point, if they did agree to do that, it's very expensive, and who would pay for it is the big question. And it might have to be the county. The mine should, but the individual homeowners would be hard pressed. It's tens of thousands of dollars depending on all the variables, to hook up water to your house as an alternative to a well. So this is a very recent kind of thing. And it's unfortunate that I can't really see the bottom of my screen here. So there is a very good link. And what I'm going to do is turn this into something I can send out to everyone so that we have the links that are contained in this. It's very annoying if you have to sort of hand type links. So there's a big pitch on this, and I think that Chris nailed it in terms of the electrical usage. She didn't mention that they're going to use as much electricity as 5,000 homes. And it will be fossil fuel dependent because it's going to be coming mostly from PG&E. And a lot of that electricity is fossil fuel stuff. So I'm going to stop here. And it's about 6 o'clock, and I want to get back to our first speaker. The next person after Steve, by the way, so you can be ready, is Martha Turner. But Steve, are you ready? There you are. Yes.
I'm ready.
Okay. You're going to turn the earth into money, huh?
Yeah. Some other kind of money, not gold. But I just basically wanted to say I wrote a letter to the Board of Supervisors and then sent it to the union on August the 7th, and it was published shortly after that. And it contains the guts of what I want to say tonight. And that is that I'm really appalled by the extractive and exploitive nature, mining, drilling, clear cutting in the Amazon, and a lot of different types of fishing and safaris and everything. They're all very, very extractive, whether of natural systems or human systems. They're very extractive. We have a really beautiful history in the gold rush, but the good has also come with a lot of ugly. There was a lot of violence, claim jumping, murders, a lot of exploitive behavior of many people hunting down indigenous people during that time and with bounties. It's really, there's a lot of ugly things around the gold rush. And if you have any doubts about it, just visit Empire Mine for a full day and read a lot of the things that are in the museum there. It's really, really eye-opening. There's a lot of modern equipment, so it's not the old type of deep rock mining, but the mentality doesn't really change. It's still really exploitive, extractive. And looking at the mansion there at Empire Mine compared to the conditions under which the miners lived, it's very hard for me to see that there's much difference between the venture capitalists in British Columbia who are interested in pushing this forward right now. I can't see how it can do anything but increase inequality in our area, and that's very troubling to me. All in all, though, this is really, really against so many different aspects of our principles, our UU principles, and particularly the way we live with each other and with nature and on our earth. And to have over 2,000 acres of our home, of our earth home, tunneled with mines is just mind-boggling. We have alternatives here. We have alternatives because we have beautiful arts and crafts. Education is high. We have an open community. We have writers, and the business of tourism and retirement has incredible opportunities. So please listen and talk and dialogue with us, but this mine is not a good idea. Thank you, Jim. That's it.
Yeah, thank you, Stephen. And I want to say that Stephen's been a great force in supporting getting to this point of having a Justice Night devoted to this topic. And he was, I guess you were co-chair of the Justice Ministry, what, a year ago or so?
Yeah, for 3 or 4 years. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So thank you, and thanks for staying with us. So
Thank you.
Now, Jim, when others are talking, it might help if you muted yourself. We are getting a bit of sort of feedback stuff.
okay. The next person on our team is Martha Turner, and I love her topic, which was, how dare they? Who are these people, and where are they getting their money, and what's all about them? So, Martha, take it away.
Okay. Well, that was a rather impulsive statement that I have made a number of times, but I have quite the passion about this topic. When I first heard about the possibility of the Idaho-Maryland mine opening last summer, a year ago summertime, I was like, well, what, how could this possibly be? So I started to explore it, and I'm just so astonished that there's big interest, there's big money that's behind it, even though they may be having to borrow to, put their permits through. Is that they're trying to get the investors, they're multi-international companies, capital, what do they call the venture capitalists, and it's all, it seems to me that it's a lot of smoke and mirrors. Is that there's this company that comes in as a front to start to do this exploration, and the timelines, as I've started to study them, and I'm still putting the pieces together and learning about it all the time, because there's so much to learn about different angles and aspects of this. Is that they, it started a couple of years ago, was when they first came in with a use permit that was submitted to the county. A few years before that, like I believe it was 2008, is that there was a mining company that came in that tried to open the same said mine, and that they were closed, they were prevented by, they ran out of money, and that the city of Grass Valley is where they submitted their petitions and permits for. So now this new company, I guess they've looked at the history and decided to use the county to try to appeal to a different avenue to get their interests pushed forward to open this mine. And as I look deeper into it, and I'm learning about who the board of directors are for Rise Gold Mine, they are scientists, and they are capitalists, and they are explorers, and my intention is to try to appeal to the humanity of some of these players, both locally with the board of directors, the board of supervisors here in our town. And then the next layer out is the board of directors for Rise Gold. The next layer out beyond that would be the investors and how to reach the investors. So I'm learning a bit about the, files that are filings with the SEC in the United States, and the filings of its equivalent up in Canada, which have names. They actually have the people's names, and they'll have a little bio. So in my investigation, I was looking for personal email addresses to, or some sort of address besides a corporate office in Vancouver. And I was reading one of them. This Dr. Thomas Vers is one on the board of Rise Gold, and he is also a member of this mining and the Society of Mining something. So I wrote to that society and said, I'm looking for this fella. And indeed, they sent me an email and said, we forwarded your request to Dr. Vers. And the next day I got an email from Dr. Vers. Thomas Vers. So he's my first kind of like just inching myself in to try to have a human contact with somebody, to try to understand, and also to try to get the messages out, because it's real clear that that Mr. Mosman, Benjamin Mosman here locally, is telling us, it's just misinformation that he's disseminating. So I think that should their board of directors know that it's misinformation, that our board of supervisors, know, which is what we're all doing here locally. And even if there's some way to get, I have no idea how to go about this, but to get the information to possible investors. It's like this is like you're throwing your money away to be sending money toward this, because we have an amazing opposition that is growing, this groundswell, grassroots groundswell that's saying, no, there is no aspect of this that will bring good to our community. So I'm inviting you all to participate perhaps in a letter writing campaign. We know that the UUers can do an amazing letter writing campaign that we did with the Vote Forward before the elections last November, is to organize, provide the actual names and addresses, like Jim was saying, about knowing what your supervisor is, knowing where to send a letter to the board of directors of the Rise Gold, and maybe even having some names of some of the major investors to just say, this is a mistake. This is not right for our community. And they seem to think that we were just maybe a little podunk town here we would just roll over, that we had gold fever or something. That was just, that we don't, though, is that we recognize how destructive this would be for our community. So those who want to participate in that, I have signs for your yard. We're seeing them sprout up everywhere, which is just an incredible thing to be seen in this swell. And let me know if you need a sign.
And the Mine Watch, by the way, it's minewatchnc.org.
Mm-hmm.
They put the NC for Nevada County after the two words, Mine Watch. You can order signs from them, and they'll make them available that way. I think they're free.
They ask for a $10 donation for the signs, and that when I give a sign out, I include a little slip of paper of where to send $10 to. Also, they can always use money in donations.
Absolutely. So a couple of points here. One, this is a prong that no one has really taken. A threat of opposition. It's a good strategic move, Martha, to go after the board of directors. They're the ones who do listen to what the other investors, in addition to themselves, are saying. Unfortunately, I don't know a way to get the actual listing of stockholders that have purchased these shares at 40 or 50 cents a piece. And if we could raise questions about further investment. We could say this is not likely to get through because there's tremendous community resistance, and you do have to have the approval of their government. So anyway, I think that's a great approach. And we're going to jump topics now, because there is another great irony in this mine. Besides adding to air that's already very high in ozone and adding all kinds of pollutants to it to make it even worse, we are struggling with water. And so far we've been pretty lucky up here. But as you know, agricultural areas in the Central Valley are really suffering. But are we really going to send our water down the mountain at the rate of millions of gallons a day? So Marion Blair, are you here?
I am here. Before I launch into my little spiel, I just wanted to add that if they have to rezone that old mill property, we should be writing letters to the Planning Commission as well.
Yeah.
Just a thought. Anyway, I will tell you this. I am not a hydrologist, but both my graduate work and my career in a large water agency were very focused on the impacts of human activities on water, both surface water and groundwater. So just from my own experience and what little I know, I just moved to Grass Valley less than 4 months ago. And so I'm new to the community and the UUCM community. Glad to be with you. The risks of several potential hydrological complications strike me as significant when I read about the plans for this mine. One is the impacts to the NID water reserves, which Jim was just referring to. The hydrological technical report by Rise Gold states that the Brunswick facilities will use approximately 5,700 gallons per day of potable water, and an additional 42,000 gallons per day of potable water will be needed for that Centennial site, mostly for dust control. Also, second, what struck me was the impacts, potential impacts to groundwater and wells was ill-defined from what I saw and potentially very high. The millions of gallons of water removed to dewater tunnels daily and its impact on groundwater may disrupt and contaminate wells, as history has shown with other regional mines such as the San Juan mine. I think, you know, this is hard rock mining. As you know, groundwater is in aquifers is in the interstitial spaces between the rock. And so we don't really know what the effect of this dewatering will have on the groundwater in that area. And certainly that will affect the wells. The water removed from these tunnels, and this was referred to earlier, once treated will be drained into Wolf Creek. And when I heard about it's just a secondary treatment that it would go through, that was pretty alarming because that's not very highly treated. And actually tertiary has then chlorine added to it, which would be bad for the creek as well. Anyway, the ecological impacts to the creek could be numerous. Finally, I would add that not all the effects of this water removal on groundwater are clear. For example, groundwater overdraft has the potential to cause land subsidence. I've done written a lot of papers about this, and it is well documented all over the world. And that is replete with its own problems, as we see from huge sinkholes in Florida to any other number of problems. So I haven't seen anything about those kind of impacts. And that's pretty much it about the water. The responding to the draft environmental impact report is going to be very important for us. Thank you.
Well, and thank you, Marion. And it's great to have your expertise, and, you know, welcome to the area. I've been here 20 years, and there are a lot of battles to fight. So thanks for joining in this one. I don't know what the next one's going to be.
This is just so egregious.
So one of the things that is pertinent to this that I want to share with you is that several years ago, NID was going to dewater a lot of the canals in Nevada County. And one of them was the Cascade Canal on Banner Mountain. And what we did is we formed a group, and it was called Save Our Historic Canals. And that group, of course, that's the way you say that is sock. So we really socked it to him in a lawsuit. And the community on Banner Mountain won that lawsuit. And basically what we discovered through the geologist work was that there's a tilt to the strata of rock that goes, say, from the top of Banner Mountain down towards Brunswick. And those layers, those strata are where water moves underground. And they thought, well, if you close the canals, you're going to change the water going in through percolation into those strata. But on the other end, it seems obvious to me at least that if you move the water out down below Banner Mountain, that it's going to affect wells up there and lower the water table as well. So I've been talking to some of the people in SOC to see if they want to join with us. So thanks again, Marion. And next up is Jim Perkins. And we got into a little bit with Chris's point about underground explosions, but Jim, you've been thinking a lot about this. Take it away.
Okay, Chris took some of what I had to say. I was going to talk about both the health effects from the pollution and the explosions, the blasting that's going to happen in the neighborhoods. Chris gave a lot of statistics about comparing Nevada County with California. One of the things she didn't say is that a couple of years ago, the American, I'm spacing on the name, anyway, the National Organization that deals with air and breathing identified that Nevada County has the worst air quality of any county in the state of California. And so we can't afford to make our air quality any worse. Mining operations call for continuous truck trips. Transportation is the largest producer of carbon emissions in California. So all of those truck trips will be emitting stuff into the air. Despite efforts to mitigate, there will be escape fumes from blasting and processing. And she mentioned fugitive dust, which will escape from rock crushing, loading, and unloading as they create mountains of engineered fill. So those are some of the health consequences, and some come from blasting, and there will be a lot of blasting. I've heard 7 days a week. There will be 100 explosions going on under 2,585 acres of the Grass Valley area. And this will be felt inside homes. So you can imagine what that's going to be like for the people living in the area. And that's all I really have on that.
Okay. So Jim, thank you very much for taking a look at that. Chris did get into a lot of things that it's good to hear again. And one of the things that we do have as data is that when Rise mine was drilling initially to take core samples and going down in the Brunswick site, for example, they actually woke people up. And we have reports of individuals waking up at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning because they were drilling into that rock underneath their houses out on Brunswick Road. So we have evidence that that noise travels and certainly will have an effect on people who live near the mine. I do want to say that we're going to suggest to Rise Mine that they talk to Tesla about their trucks. So we'll see if we can get them to invest in, if they get approved, will require electric trucks. That's a joke. We'll save a lot of pollution if we do that. Okay, so I think that was it for our volunteers. Anita couldn't be with us tonight for a variety of reasons, but what I would like to do is wrap up because this has been, I think, just a tremendous review, and I so appreciate all of you coming. So we've talked about some of these things, and I want to add that when Chris talked about the loss of real estate value, and we have talked about it, that 20% number comes from a survey that was published in the Union by a real estate agent who surveyed real estate agents. So that's not somebody just pulling a number out of the hat. They said that there will be a 20% drop in real estate value. Well, how far away from the mine will that extend? We don't know that.
Say,
So,
Jim, excuse me.
yes.
Anita is here. She is, I'm trying to get our attention. She does, she's there. So Anita, you can have a chance to talk when Jim's done.
Well, let me go back because I think you saw her, but she's called Gwen. Okay, ask to unmute. I'm asking her to unmute. Unmute, Anita. Okay. That's probably one of the most common phrases ever used in social media is the word, please unmute. Okay. Well, what I'll do is move ahead because I think we're getting close to dinner time here. There's an old adage about professional speakers, and that is that if you stand between, your speech is standing between you and dinner, you better watch out. So we're going to be careful about that. Looks like Bob Brandstrom has joined us someplace. Bob, if you have any comments, I don't see you on the screen here, but if you have any comments about what the City Council might do, please join in. I see a number. You could be in disguise someplace in here. Okay, so I'm going to finish up now with things that I can add to this. And one of the strongest articles to come out recently is that Anita?
Yes.
Okay. The
You
floor
want
is,
a quickie?
yeah. Give us. I do want to acknowledge that for those of you who are new, Anita is one of the original founders of this church. I think it was 1996, and so we're
94.
Yeah.
Anyway, I've been at the doctor. I've been trying to get on Zoom, and my neighbor, who is Gwen, came over to bring her computer over to set me up so that we could do this. And I'm sorry we couldn't get on till now, but would you like to hear what I had to say?
Well, your timing is absolutely perfect. Please go ahead.
Okay. You'll forgive me. I just had both of my eyes with shots in them. So if I stumble a little, that's because I'm a little bleary-eyed. My topic is why UUCM should care. And I stated, UUCM is bonded to most all Unitarian Universalist congregations who have covenanted to affirm and promote right relations in many ways. One statement that has attached itself to me says that we have respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. So we need to promote a right relationship with water that is drinkable, air that fills our lungs, earth that grows our food, surroundings that facilitate restful sleep at night and helpful ambience for our daily labors, and all other systems needed for a healthy living arrangement. In my experience, in my opinion, a mine in the middle of Grass Valley could only be detrimental to us for a small community. So I believe that we need to speak out and speak out and with a concerned voice for all of us. A renowned minister down in Southern California when I lived there by the name of John Norbrough spoke and said, religion is being together, knowing together that we are mortal, sharing together for the pain, the fear, the rage, hiding and loving each other, embracing love, compassion, consolation, and passion. So what we need right now is passion. And as a passionate religious community, We need to face the future, and the time is now.
Wow.
Period. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Anita.
Okay.
I'm really glad that you were able to get in with the computer and join us.
Really squeaked by.
So I'm going to move forward, and I think what we all know is that these things are true. We haven't really talked about habitat destruction, but that's particularly important. It's one of the major issues that Mine Watch is addressing with the Centennial site, because it turns out there's a lot of habitat there that has moved in since the mine closed 7 years ago. And with truck traffic, one thing that we haven't been able to get an answer for is who's going to maintain the roads when you've got trucks traveling 100 times a day, making 100 trips a day, and these trucks are over 10 tons. So this is going to be some damage to the roads there. So I think everything else has been covered on here. One of the questions that's continually asked is, we have a beautiful community, and it's why I moved up here from the Bay Area 20 years ago. And you know, just the entertainment, the arts, and so forth, the merchants, the artistic mercantilism that exists here, and the outdoors. So the question that we will be asked is, well, won't tourists come to see an operating mine? Well, imagine, if you will, a modern operating mine, which is basically going to be a big warehouse with trucks being filled with crushed rock and driving down the road. That I don't think is going to be the tourist attraction we might think. So there are a lot of people. I mentioned earlier that there were 2,000 people that have signed the petition and indicated that they want to work to stop the mine. This again is the link. If you go to that link, it is amazingly easy to sign the petition. So I strongly urge people to do that. And this is all pretty straightforward, that what we want is, our action is to learn and keep on top of this. And the union's been a very good forum for this. I think there have been 3 or 4 articles for the mine, and I started counting them the other day. I kept clippings of many of the articles. There are hundreds of articles that have come out against the mine, some of them with incredibly damning data. So the other actions we would like is that, in addition to signing the petition, you support the task force that we want to form formally within UUCM. And at this point, I think I can take the liberty to say that you will receive a survey asking if we should form a task force. You know, what stance should we take as a congregation? And then after that, we will have a congregational meeting that will be essentially, I guess you could call it, endorsed or supported by the board of directors. And I met with the board of directors yesterday, and they were very interested and very favorable to doing something to deal with this mine. So another thing that can do, I don't know how many people know it, but the law of California says that any public meeting of elected officials will have a comment section at the beginning. And the way the county supervisors do it is, you can come in and sign in, and you can speak for up to 3 minutes, depending on how many people are in line. But you can comment on anything that is not on their agenda. If you're commenting on something that's on the agenda, it's a different approach. But right now, the mine is not on their agenda. But can you imagine the effect it would have if we all went to the supervisors' meetings and said, "What are you guys doing? Why are you even thinking about it? You're wasting our time. Just, don't support this." So write letters and then get a sign. We've talked about those things. I want to offer right now, and I don't know how else to do it, but I think what I'll do is I'll put it in chat. And that is that, let's see, chat didn't come up. Okay, here it is. So I'm going to put in my email address because I think this is so important. I'll deal with the emails. But if you want to have addresses of people to write to and even examples of what people have said in previous letters, or you have any questions, or if you want a copy of Chris's presentation or my presentation, please ask and we'll move forward with that. Okay? So anybody have any questions about chat? Chris, you can see it on the screen right now, I believe. Is that chat window showing to people? Bob, are you seeing that?
Yes, I am, but I have enabled my chat, and other people have to do the same thing. You have to enable your chat.
When you're sharing a screen, you can't see the chat.
Okay. Well, it's pretty easy. It's Aristotle, the great philosopher, 2001, the great movie, at gmail.com. So Aristotle 2001 at gmail.com, and you'll get to me. Okay. So going down the list here, one of the things that's in our strategy as proposed to the board of directors is a public forum. And we would like to, if we ever are allowed to have face-to-face meetings again, we'd like to have one in October or even later in the year, it could be early November, where we invited speakers and invited the public to get the word out. So, and then join, if you send that email to me, I can add you to the list of people that are actually supporting the task force formation. And you can just be a supporter, no commitment required, or you can sign up as an activist and help us write letters and do all the things we've talked about. So this is a good slide to stop on. And the quote at the bottom is now backed up by incredible evidence that's on that MindWatch site. And that's, you can see Martin Ribb's comment. He's a business owner here and has had a lot of jobs by building a solar industry in Western Nevada County. And we have a much better industries to choose from, providing far greater local job numbers with less risk and more certainty, and without exploding our county's energy action plan, because they would use so much electricity that it would really do that in. And this is what I will send you if you email me, and you can see there's a lot of presence. Facebook, Instagram, Nextdoor, Twitter. We're really out there in social media trying to get the word out, and would love to have everyone here join us. Okay. Any further comments, closing words?
Jim, can I? One thing I'm curious about, because I know one of the problems is that some of our local representatives, of course, are of the conservative bent, and they're probably all for it. But I'm wondering, is there a way to approach the governor's office? I mean, you're talking about such an environmental impact. I mean, he's big on, reducing greenhouse things and our risk to fire, forest fire and everything else. And here we're going to put in, all these trucks, putting diesel fuel and more pollutants and carbon things into the area, not to mention, water pollution and everything else when we're the state outstrip.
And why not write our Congress people and
Yeah.
senators.
Our senators, we can have some things. Unfortunately, our Congress people are totally conservative and not very. They're the type that are going to be for it. They're not going to help support us, but the senators might.
I'd also draw your attention to a post that Kevin has made in the chat. I will read it. To clarify, churches can take stances on issues, but cannot endorse or oppose candidates. So remember, if you're not talking, mute yourself. Thank you very much.
Okay, we're definitely interested in taking a stand on an issue, aren't we? Well, on that note, and thanks for coming, Kevin, by the way. Thank you all for coming and for the members of the team who offered their ideas and so forth. We've really skimmed the surface. I will mention one report alone on hydrology is over 1,000 pages long. So if you want to dig deeper, there's lots of digging, no pun intended, that we can do. Okay, so thanks again, and look forward to your emails, and I'll send you some in response. Good night.
All right,
Good
thank you.
night.